be a lot of questions that are, based on the text. I'm just analyzing the HSST question paper. In all the exams, HSST exam, KEA exam, whatever exam I have been teaching for, RPSC exam, in these times, always, they want you to read the text thoroughly. There will be a lot of questions based on the text. As I keep on reminding you, it is the same for NET also. Second thing that is required of you is, you should do your own research. There will be questions based on information that is there in many of the common popular websites. That is also for sure. Another thing is, questions will be very big. You will be required to spend a lot of time reading and understanding the question paper. You should not try to think in the exam hall. You should know the basics so thoroughly, so well, that without thinking, you should be able to answer. This is what they are expecting. I have said this 100 times in every exam analysis. I'm saying this. And look at the questions from literature part A. I have divided them into textual interpretation questions that are like 24. Then textual quotes are there. That are like 7. Critical comments of critics. Who said this about this book? Questions like that. 6 questions are there. Then some are confusing. Some are based on background or context about the author, about the age, etc. Those kind of questions are 7. At least 6 questions are very confusing or even wrong. When the answer key comes, there will be questions that we'll have to challenge also. So 6 questions I put like that, confusing or wrong. And then from linguistics, out of 10 questions, I'm telling you, 7 were very easy. Anybody who knows linguistics basics thoroughly will write linguistics and ELT, applied linguistics also. Criticism and theory also, many were very direct, easy questions. I would say 7 to 8 are easy. But now I know this is a very ambitious analysis, ideal. In the exam hall, all of you are not very great scholars in all these topics. In the exam hall, you are under pressure. So, according to my analysis, see, in part A, look at this, in part A, 45 out of 70 are easy, but I know that is ambitious. In the exam hall, that is not possible to find all these questions easy. But even then, ideally, if you say 45, at least 35 or 40, you should be able to answer, because a very important requirement in any exam is you should have presence of mind. If you are getting upset and tense in the exam hall, they don't want you. Why are you getting upset or tense? It is because you have not studied properly. This is how they might be thinking. So I know one thing. Even if you think you did not write everything correctly, you may have done better than you think, you may still pass. Now, part B literature, part B in HSST exam is teaching aptitude, research aptitude, general Renaissance, Kerala Renaissance, Constitution, current affairs, etc. Part B, I know, was not that easy. Especially teaching and research were confusing. We can even say there were some out of syllabus questions, probably. Only 4 out of 10 questions, I would say, were easy. But in general paper, even though there were some tough questions, really tough questions, there were many easy questions. I would say 12 to 15 questions. That is what all the entire team at TESS agreed to this. 12 to 15 questions were easy. Now, whether an exam is easy or difficult, that is what determines the cutoff also. Let us take a look at this. In part A, majority of questions were actually easy, I think. Part B, not so. Now, when I say easy, I'm saying from a very ideal perspective, from an ideal point of view. That doesn't mean everybody should feel like that. According to me, out of 100 questions, actually more than 50%, 64 questions or so is easy for the ideal student. The problem is that we are not ideal students. You don't have to get 64 anyway. Last time the cutoff was like 56 or something, wasn't it? So even if the cutoff is a little higher, it is actually possible to pass. Don't cry over spilt milk, but keep on trying. Many of you may not have cleared NET. You have to try to clear NET. You have to write other exams, KV exam. So many exams are there. You have to go on studying. The most important thing, the takeaway for a student is how an exam is conducted. What is the expectation and why did you fare not so well? If you have not fared well, why did you fare not so well? Why did you did not perform that greatly? If you have not performed, that is. So once again, as I have always pointed out, our materials, classes, books, revision, I know that it was very helpful for people who attended it diligently, because we recognized a lot of questions here from our classes, revision, and our notes. Lots of questions, directly and indirectly. Secondly, because with that knowledge, you should be able to guess correctly. You should understand that I am not conducting the exam. I cannot give you exact question, but with that knowledge, you should be able to guess correctly. For what shall I give you as an example? So many interesting questions. The original title of Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Options are The Serious Reflections of Robinson Crusoe, The Farther Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. These are part of Robinsonades. Robinson Crusoe was not an only book. It led to other books like Robinson Crusoe. Daniel Defoe himself wrote The Serious Reflections of Robinson Crusoe and Farther Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. Answer is The Life and Strange, Surprising Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. Then, another interesting question that is not easy. Salman Rushdie's technique of magic realism in his novels is said to have been learned from the Latin American writers such as dash and dash. There are only two names that we recognize, Jorge Luis Borges and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. All the other names are very weird names, except for Isabel Allende. Maybe you have heard it. But I think the answer is Borges and Marquez. You know, in the exam, in NET, HSA, HSST, KEA, RPSE, all the exams that UPHSE, all the exams that I'm familiar with, I see one thing. Many questions are just stress-based questions. They will give you options that will look very dangerous and difficult, but actually the obvious answer may be the answer. So I don't think you should be stressed actually. And then if you read very carefully, many options are like obviously wrong. There are many options that I found are obviously wrong. I'm searching for an example. For example, in the question about culture industry, it is a radical rethink. One option is, it is a radical rethinking of mass culture in that it promotes the values of high culture. Wrong. Culture industry does not promote the values of high culture. So then, what can I give you as an example? I'm checking. Many options were obviously wrong. For example, the question about Mac Flecknoe, the target of the satire is Richard Flecknoe. That is wrong. Thomas Shadwell. Then another question about Kubla Khan. There is a reference to an Abyssinian maid singing of Mount Tabor. Mount Abora is what she sings of. It is a fictional mountain. It is not Mount Tabor. It is confusing because you will think, is Tabor the same as Abora? You are supposed to think like that. And then many questions that were like paragraph questions were actually easy. Thomas More's Utopia question. The narrator speaks of a stranger who seemed past the flower of his age. His face was tanned. He had a long beard, blah, blah, blah. And it says, I concluded that he was a seaman. Obviously, it is Raphael Hitlerday. About Peter Giles, he won't say he's a stranger. He met Peter Giles talking to a stranger, Raphael Hitlerday. And that is what he is describing here. Many of the paragraph questions like that were actually easy. If you have common sense of the book, you will be able to answer. There were also tricky questions like Shakespeare left an amount of 28 shillings and 8 pence in his will. I did not know. I searched online and found that Shakespeare left 26 shillings and 8 pence. It is like too absurd to expect you to know how many shillings he left. But in that option, in that question, many of the options were easy. F.S. Boas in Shakespeare and his predecessor used the term problem place. That is very famous. It is important. You know, Shakespeare's Henry VIII was being performed when Globe Theatre burned down. These are all very famous things that is there in our encyclopedia, etc. So, but then one tricky one was the Astor Place riot in Manhattan. That was in the 19th century. Well, that is correct option. That statement is correct given here. But the thing is, this is like a stress question. You know, these are all stress questions. You should not get 100%. Some questions will be difficult, obviously. But the focus is on the questions that are easy and the questions that are in the brim. Some questions you should not answer. They will give you questions like you should not answer. So I would say this was a medium level exam. It was not easy completely, but it was not difficult. If you say it was difficult, it is only because you got confused and you did not analyze objectively. Maybe the cutoff will be higher than last time, higher than 56, maybe 58, but it won't be 60 or more than that, I think. So I hope when the answer key comes, don't worry now. When the answer key comes, and after you challenge and write and get the correct number of answers, maybe you will find that it was not difficult after all. And once again, if you are writing other exams, you have to focus on reading the text. You have to focus on getting all the basics correct, because you will not get time in the exam. All exams are like that. You will not get time in the exam. You will have to write very fast. Remember, the questions will be very difficult and challenging. When you study, you can't study like that. When you study, you have to study in a simple, straightforward manner and get all the basics right. Every one of these questions, maybe 90% of these questions were for people who know the basics right. And we did the right thing. That is how we studied in our classes, in our videos, in our notes and quizzes. NET also is like that. Every exam is like that. You have to get the basics right. Then in the exam hall, they will ask you in a challenging manner. If you know it right, you will be finding it easy. You have to know the text thoroughly. Look at the symbols, themes, characters, settings, publication details, biography of the author, concepts. And you have to be updated in many contemporary things also, especially in the general and linguistics area, etc. ELT section, teaching and research, etc. Your updated knowledge was relevant. Okay. So guys, I hope this analysis, you found it useful. And I hope that you have done the exam in a manner that you don't have to regret and you don't have to worry about. I am stopping the live stream. Let us now talk and see what we have to talk to each other about. Thank you, those who were listening to